Hello everyone, I'm Simon. As you can see behind me, I've got some set up to show you later on. But first I wanted to show a few slides, and probably about 20 minutes or so on the slides. And then the rest I wanted it to be focused on the product. The slides today, I didn't really intend to be the slides with facts, figures, demographics of bariatrics or anyone like that. I wanted it to be more focused on the real world experiences, the comments that I pick up on when I'm out doing assessments, with the shower toilets in general, but mainly in this session today on the bariatrics. Anyone who was with us last week, I apologise. I've got two slides that are similar to last week. One just to introduce myself. So hello, I'm Simon. I've been around about 20 years now in the mobility industry, starting off with basic wheelchairs, scooters, through to the specialist equipment, and for the last 7.5 years at Geberit. Just so you all are aware, we are still actively doing home assessments when you guys as occupational therapists or technical officers request us to do so. So we're not forcing the issue on anyone at all. We actually set up last year 3 ways of helping to carry on doing assessments. Yes, one is taking the product into the home just like normal. The other option is by doing it online. We've got a YouTube channel. There's a 25-minute demonstration of a toilet on there, just like as if we were in the house doing the demonstration. And then kind of a third option was a mixture of both, where the family would watch the YouTube video at home. And then when we turned up at the property to do the survey of a bathroom, we literally only had to go in the bathroom, do our measurements, and then go back outside the house. And we've had 1 or 2 people actually shouting questions through the window. For us, it's whatever makes the family and yourselves feel safe, but still be able to get a thorough assessment, survey, feasibility study done properly. And if we do go in the house, granted, we wear PPE, so we've got the gloves and the mask. We do have the aprons if we feel that we're going to get a bit closer, but generally, as a rule, when we're doing our demonstration of a toilet, we're stood behind the toilet, so we've got a lovely barrier in front of us. And for what it's worth, we do wipe down the toilet with antibacterial wipes before and after each visit as well. The other week, I actually had a lady who asked me, and I think she was just taking the mickey, but she did ask me to squirt myself with antibacterial spray before I went in the house. If it made her happy, I did it. If she was having a mickey take, she won. It's whatever works. And if you're not familiar to the range of Geberit shower toilets, Geberit as a company is global. We sell out of 62 or more countries. Shower toilets, the one that we deal with for the healthcare market, is one out of a range of 5 or 6. All the others are wall hung. And in this instance for bariatrics, definitely not the idea of going down the route. And it's not so much because it's wall hung toilet still tested to 50, 60 stone weight limit. It's more the fact of the installation process of these toilets and what we look at. So this presentation is all about our AquaClean Mirror Care toilet, and it's got a 30 stone seat weight limit. And I've underlined the seat weight limit because I'll talk to you a bit more about that later on. So this one, like I say, I didn't want it to be too heavy. I want it to be just more of about recalling some conversations I've had in the past, experiences. So pretty much in this one, I'm just going to talk about toilet weight limits, understanding the dynamics of a bariatric person when we're sitting, even touching on toileting habits and body shapes, and then getting towards the end of considerations of the products. So when I've finished with these slides, I will be turning it off on the presentation PowerPoint slides and be showing you the product and these benches over, similar to what you can see in the picture to the side. So I thought I'd start with toileting habits, and I've no doubt you guys could even add more and more. If we open up the chat box and you want to put comments in, you can do. I have got Hannah in the background who's reading all the chat box, so any questions you've got, because your microphones are muted, please write them down, type them out. Hannah will make a note of it, and at the end we'll open it up and we'll start answering the questions. But these habits here that I've put on are the ones that very often, the most common ones. You know, we see people, most challenging thing is because the forearms are now bigger, the diameter, the hands have got chunkier, which in effect presents like they've got smaller hands when they've not, they're just chubbier fingers, if you like. Typical toileting habit we've seen is people standing up, holding onto a grab rail while they thrust the buttocks outwards to then wipe round the back. Typically, we hear people about saying we've not got enough room on the toilet, so we end up sitting down, urinating on the floor. The amount of times I have people saying by the time they've walked from the living room to the bathroom, whether it be upstairs or in a bungalow at the back of the house, by the time we get there and we've sat down doing what I'm doing, they're too tired to push, too tired to wipe. I had one gentleman who's actually got an outdoor tap linked to his shower hose, his hose pipe that comes through the bathroom window, and he's got it down at the side, constantly turned on with shower hose turned off. And when he's done what he's doing, he's actually washing his bottom with freezing cold water from a shower hose out in the garden. You know, I've seen people trying to create their own little inventive wiping aids using simple things like the litter pickers, and they put an adaptation on it, sellotape something on. I was with a gentleman 2 weeks back, and he was explaining to me in detail how he goes to the toilet. So he goes to the bathroom. Once he's in the bathroom, he strips off completely naked, sits on the toilet, does what he's gone there to do. Then when he stands up, he turns the shower on, which is on jet. He's got a wet room adaptation, turns the shower on jet, and he lies down on the floor on his belly, star-shaped, then grabs hold of his buttocks and peels himself apart so the water can get to where it needs to go. And as he said to me in detail, all he's doing there is washing his poo down to a liquid, which then tends to run along the rest of his body and sometimes onto his belly. So once he's finished washing his bottom, he's got to stand up, turn around and now wash the front of him to wash it off. And for him, the biggest thing of all that was the lying down, the standing up, the turning around, the getting undressed, getting redressed, drying. The shortness of breath and the endurance of it all was, as he said, was killing him. And I think one that everyone has probably come across, and it's the one I highlighted in red because that was to remind me of a certain story to tell you, was people sitting on the ceramic. You often see people, large people, when they're sat down, they don't want to sit on the toilet seat, they want to sit on the ceramic. And very much when you ask them why they're doing that, it's because obviously they've got now bigger hands, bigger forearms, they're trying to get their hands into the seat to wipe themselves properly. But it kind of goes against what they're trying to achieve. And this is a lesson that I learned probably 10 years ago now, when I first started doing shower chairs for large people. And I turned up with a shower chair as a base model that I knew I was going to adapt. And the lady was 33 stone. So I turned up, you know, fresh to bariatrics with my shower chair in the living room. We discussed the seat widths and measurements we needed. We discussed the fact that the two carers who help her would be pulling it backwards. So we made it rear wheel steer, so you could only pull it backwards, not push it forwards, because they were struggling with that. So I went away, went into the factory, we made the shower chair, turned back up. It was something like 36-inch seat width, went through all the doors. It was all measured and perfect. And whilst I was making the chair, I thought, you know what? She's a larger lady on a normal soft padded seat. That foam's going to collapse. So I'll make the seat thicker. So instead of it being a 2-inch, 3-inch padded seat, I made it 6-inch padded seat. And also, I made the aperture bigger, because everyone wants to sit on the ceramic, so they get a bigger hole, a bigger aperture to sit on it. So proud as punch, I turned up with this finished product, wheeled it into a living room, and straight away she went to look to me and she went, perfect width, but the seat's rubbish. And I just stepped back and went, how? Look at all the padding I've given you. And she literally turned around and went, Simon, look at the size of my bum. I've got enough padding. I don't want more padding. I just want a flat, solid seat. It's like, okay. So that easily rectified. And then she said, but why have you given me such a big hole in the seat as well? I said, because that's what you always do. You always, you know, you sit on the toilet ceramics, not the seat, so you get a bigger hole. She went, no, Simon. She said, get on the floor and watch. Now, at this point, I'm like, oh, it's okay, just tell me. She's like, no, you need to understand what happens with big bottoms when we're on toilet seats. And she literally, with the help of the carers, sat on the seat whilst I was on the floor, looking across, kind of looking up as she wanted me to do. And as she described it, you're now going to watch jelly come through your fingers, Simon. And as she sat on a seat, her bottom, because it was that large, literally, like jelly, rippled into the big aperture that I give her until her buttocks were pressed together. So now anything that was meant to be coming out of her bottom was just going to be smeared along her buttocks because the seat was forced down together. And the two lessons I learned from that day very much was, just because you've got a bigger bottom doesn't mean you've got a bigger anus, and everything should be of a similar size. So I went away that day with my chair, ripped the seat off, take the padding out of it, cleaned it all up, resprayed it in a plastic coat so it was burst steel like she asked for with no padding, and reduced the size of the aperture to back to a normal sized aperture. And that even comes into more effect when you're talking about shower toilets, because people say they need a big aperture to get the hands in. That's why they sit on the ceramic. When you've got a shower toilet, you no longer need to get your hands in. So actually having just a normal size aperture, and you will see this later when I show you the equipment, as much as some of these seats can be 23, 34 inch wide, the apertures are still a standard size. And it's for that very reason. You know, again, I didn't want this to be very in-depth. It was more about giving stories and expressing the things that we've come across. But with toileting issues, again, I'm sure you could all add to this. The biggest thing they get is a reducing of wiping capabilities, so they're not always as clean as they should be. And if they're not prepared or can't do the task like the gentleman who has a shower every time, that's obviously leaving soiling on the skin, which gives them potential for sores. Because they are sitting on the ceramics, the bottoms, especially if it's a big bottom, and that's where the main weight is caught in the buttocks, not on the belly or anywhere else. It, as I said, it falls into the pan, so it squeezes the buttocks together. And obviously, just by not being able to clean proper, it's not just the sores, but it's the odours that they start emitting from that. And one of the biggest things I always find, and I was touching on this about future-proofing of shower toilets last week, is the position of a toilet in the bathroom. And in some instances, it forces people, as the weight increases, they can no longer sit forwards, so they sit sideways on. And that's even worse because, in effect, the toilet's always longer than it is wider. So by sitting sideways on, you've got even more of your buttocks being forced into the ceramic and falling down, and then it makes the cleaning. But they're doing it because they can't sit on the toilet because the wall that may be at the side of the toilet is forcing them across. This is quite a common one that I've come across. We've walked in. At some point over the years, we've had a bathroom adaptation and what we call a comfort height toilet, or a dock end type toilet, or a DDA type toilet. In other words, one that's increased height to 480 mil seat height. That was fitted, but as they've put more weight on, again, not just the forearm increases, but also the calves and the thighs, the diameter of that increases. So you can see people who say have typically a leg length of floor to the back of knee of 40 centimeters. If they've put a few stone of weight on, and especially if it's going on the thighs, that floor to back of knee height is reduced from 40 centimeters to 36 centimeters. So you can imagine that the toilet was all right at one time, but now this person's thighs are bigger. They're actually not. And one thing you'll notice with the two benches that I show later on, as much as we've got 2 or 3 seat heights, they are actually quite low for what you consider a normal toilet. And it's because it's taken into consideration that even a gentleman who's 6 foot tall, who may be 35 stone, when you actually measure the floor to back of knee height, it's actually quite low just because of the diameter of it. And another thing, I'm quite notorious in this industry about toilet lids, but everything you'll notice today has not got toilet lids on. And that's simply because toilet lids, especially when we're talking about big bottoms and big shelves, get in the way. You know, on the very left picture, you've got a very small toilet for a small bathroom. You can imagine when the lid's up on that, the person sitting on the toilet's got no room together. And one of the reasons I don't go for the big John seat is because it's got a lid on it, which is stuck up, and it prohibits everyone getting further back. The biggest thing we always get asked is, in fact, we had a question just last week in the other seminar, the other webinar, was asking about, do we do a ceramic that's got a longer pan, so it reached out more into the room, so someone could sit on it and get all the bits in? Very often it's nothing to do with needing a bigger pan, it's actually just being able to get far enough back on it. And the biggest thing that stops it doing it is small toilets and lids sticking up. And just to lighten the mood a little bit, because obviously we're talking about big bottoms and washing soiling away when we're in showers, if any of you sat there and think, I'm sure a toilet roll used to be bigger when I was younger, you were very much right. Toilet roll over the years has shrunk. At one time it used to be 4.5 by 4.5 inches, quite a decent size. Manufacturers have wanted to make money, cost of paper, cost of trees and everything else has increased. So to make money, they reduce the size of a toilet roll. At the same time, you've also got the people in our world getting bigger and bigger. So bottoms get bigger, toilet roll shrinks. But there you go. If you all sat there thinking, yeah, my toilet roll used to be bigger, it was. So I guess this is the most important bit about today. Toilet user weight limits. And a little task for you all later on, whether you're at home, whether you're at work, go and find out what toilet you've got, and then go on Google and try and find a user weight limit for it. And one or two you'll find it, depending, but but most are either going to struggle because, as a rule, toilet manufacturers, Geberit ourselves, we also Twyford, so Geberit and Twyford, manufacturer of toilets across the world. Even our competitors, you can go on there and try to find the user weight limit of a toilet and you're going to struggle really badly because we genuinely don't talk about weight limits. Two reasons. One of the standards that we work to, which means we've got to static test a toilet to a certain standard. Typically it's 453 kilograms, which is about 71 stone. So that's a static load test. The other reason we don't talk about them that often is because, I mean, you can see the picture on the right, it gets sold with that toilet seat and we test everything as one package. And then you get it home and you think, no, I don't like that toilet seat and lid. I'm going to go to Argos and buy one of those veneer type, thick, chunky, mahogany ones, for example. So whatever toilet seat we test everything with is what we can rate it to. But as soon as it gets home and gets in your house and you don't like that toilet seat, you take it off, put something else on. So we never talk about weight limits because we know we've got the standards in the background. But they are static loads. So at the very start, you heard me say about we give it a 30 stone seat weight limit because the seat we can test. And the seat we know in our toilet won't be taken off because it can only have our toilet seat. So we're okay in our world. But when you start looking at other toilets, away from shower toilets in particular, then yeah, you're going to struggle to find a weight limit. If you do find one for yours, let me know what it is. You'll find on the websites the weight of a toilet, typically 30 kilograms, but you're going to struggle to find the actual weight limit. And it's because of the standards that we work to in the background, which is a static load, and also because of the seats being swapped and switched around, and we just can't tell you which seat you're going to stick with. But if none of you heard of it, there's two weight loads that you can test to. We've got a static load bearing, which is what all toilets are tested to. And then some no toilets are tested to is a dynamic load bearing. So there's a difference. So a static weight load is literally 71 stone of weight being resting on the toilet, placed on it and left and then taken off and then put back down. A dynamic load bearing is 71 stone being dropped on the toilet, lifted up, dropped again, lifted up. There's a massive difference. In fact, it's quite a lot of difference. So as you can see, static, rested, dynamic is up, down, up, down. And you'll have always seen this with bariatric people when they're sitting down. Some can control the sitting, others just drop. And there's a big old thump as they hit the chair or hit the couch or hit the bed. Can you calculate it? Yes, you can. If you're a genius, then there's a scientific formula for it. But my mum called me Simon for a reason, so that's a bit too much for me. But the easiest way to calculate a dynamic impact weight, i.e. someone dropping, is the next time you're at home and you've got some scales, or if you're in boots, jump on the scales, stand still, take your weight, and note what it is. So example, if I got on, I'm about 13 stone, and if I stood still, the scale stayed there at 13 stone. If I was to jump a couple of inches into the air and drop back down, it'd probably be about double. And that's roughly what we work to. A dynamic impact weight you can calculate is about double the weight. So you can now you assume, right, okay, so if someone's 15 stone and they jumped up and landed down, they'd be 30 stone. If you've got someone who's 40 stone and you ask them to jump on the scales, they'd land and they'd be about 80 stone. But the actual calculation falls between 2 and 4 times the mass. So if someone jumped 5 foot in the air, when they came down, they could actually be 3 times the body weight. So it all depends on how hard the object is, the weight they are, that gives a dynamic weight limit. The easiest way in our market, because we're not dropping miles, you know, we're talking 2 or 3 foot as they drop, but they do drop, is to base it on double the body weight. And that's where we come in with looking at benches and other equipment to go on the toilet or over the toilet. If you are 30 stone weight limit and you drop down heavily, then you're pushing close to 60 stone. If you're looking at someone who's above the toilet weight limit, 35 stone, going to 40 stone, and they drop down heavily, you can assume that their dynamic impact weight of hitting the toilet can be around about 80 stone. Now, bear in mind, we static all toilets, regardless of shower toilet, normal toilet, we static weight test them to the 71 stone, 453 kilograms. That's a nice, gentle, static weight. The static weight compared to a dynamic impact weight is totally different. So, what if you want something more than the 30 stone weight limit? that say, for example, on our toilet is, then some manufacturers do use a Big John toilet seat on it. When we were designing ours, all the market research I did led me away from the Big John toilet seat. So I'm very honest and open with it. If we have someone who needs a shower toilet and they're above the 30 stone weight limit, and they've not got the facility in the bathroom, the space in the bathroom to do what I'm going to show you in a minute, then I would much easier rather refer you to our competitor who do the Big John toilet seat on it. But I always say to everyone, I stress to everyone, do the homework first. Look at how they're sitting. Are they dropping down heavily? In some instances, when we've been doing bathroom adaptations in a bungalow where it's not a concrete floor, it's a suspended floor, we've even recommended having the floor underneath strengthened more before we put the toilet in, just because you can see these people dropping so heavily on it. But yeah, at Geberit, we don't do a Big John seat. We look at other things, whether it's referring you to our competitor for the Big John seat itself because there's not a room in the bathroom, or looking towards the benches that we've been working closely with quite a few manufacturers. And I do have these with me today. What's the benefit of the benches? Well, they're not part of the toilet. So regardless of how hard a person may sit down on a steel bench, a frame over the toilet, it's never going to affect the toilet. So even if someone managed to break one of these benches that's got an 85 stone weight limit, you're not damaging the toilet. And the cost to replace a bench compared to replacing a shower toilet can be a couple of £1,000. So it's a lot better. A lot of these benches have weight limits of 55 stone to 85 stone. The ones that I'm going to show you today were actually tested with a ton weight on them, and then we give them 85 stone weight limits. And here's just a couple of pictures because today I've got two in the room. If I tried to bring all the benches that I've tested and tried with our toilet, there just won't be space. But we work with Osprey Healthcare. The one in the middle is from Marty, who sent it me from Langham's, from Gordon Ellis. Although it's only a 30 stone weight limit, it has been used in emergencies sometimes when people have needed just that little bit of extra support getting on and off, or a little bit more open space around them. It's just a frame for your equipment loan store. I think it retails at less than £150, and it literally can just be placed over the toilet. It takes a 30 stone weight, but it's got rails. The last time I used that was in one of these tin metal fabricated houses, prefabricated houses as they call them, and you couldn't have any drop down rails on the wall because it was just tin. So this was a little great way of giving stability because you sat on it, but having armrests as well. And on the right is not a special bench. That's actually from ADAP. So again, it comes through the equipment loan stores, quite easy to get hold of. It even has little casts on the back so it can be wheeled away from the toilet if it's not going to stay over it. For me, and everyone's got their own opinions, it's got a backrest on it. Not perfect, but if it's right for the person, that's what matters more. And this is kind of a bit of a before and after picture. So I took the bench away to take the picture of the toilet on its own on the left, and then I put the bench back on it in position, and you can see it there. So this is a 22-inch seat width frame. I've got one with me. I'm actually sat on it in a minute, so I'll show you in a second. And the one thing that people do see when we show these benches working with a toilet, a lot of people, especially if you're not used to dealing in the bariatric world, they see the bench, think, "Oh crikey, I can't show them that. Look how big it is." It's you know, some people feel a little bit embarrassed about the size of a seat showing it to a client. But very often you walk into people's houses, and whether it's yourself, whether it's a previous occupational therapist, or even someone's just been out and bought the equipment themselves, very often they've got benches in situ long before we turn up suggesting something like this with a toilet. So the photograph on the left worked exactly like that. The gentleman already had the wet room adaptation done a little while before, and the bench that you can see under his shower area was already in place. So when I wheeled the toilet in to do the demo and showing him the toilet first, his first thought, "I'm not going to sit on that. There's no chance. I'll hang over the edge. My bottom's going to fall down. I'm going to get pain in my hips." And I had this in the car. So, well, I've got the answer. Went back to my car, brought the bench in, and his first comment was, "Oh, it's exactly like, well, I've got my shower already." And sure enough, we went into the shower. The bench that you see in the picture was already there. And 2 or 3 months later, everything was installed. And he actually got rid of the bench on the right in the end because it had a backrest and because it had arms on it. He didn't like that. He felt a bit squashed in. So the one that's over our toilet, albeit our old toilet, he takes away from there and puts straight over into the shower area. So he's using the one bench because it's stainless steel for toileting and for showering. And the one on the right that you can see, again, it's got armrests. This is from Chiltern Inverdex. They are actually removable, but you can see in the corner, they already had the bench. That bench has now gone, and they're just using the toilet bench for showering and for toileting. Again, everyone's different. Some people want to keep both. The setup on the left looks kind of nice and neat. He can just get from one to the other, but he didn't want that. He just wanted one bench for all. That's kind of it with the slides. Behind me in a second, I'm just going to leave this slide on so you can write down my contact details if you want to, but we will send them to you. The next part of this session I wanted to do was shut the PowerPoint presentation down, and I've set the toilets up, slightly different configurations, but so you can see these benches over the toilet. I can explain to you what I mean about the depth and the widths behind, so you get the idea of bottoms and shelves, which was a comment, the different seat types. I'll try my best to give you an example of how strong and sturdy they are. Sometimes it means me standing up and sitting down heavily so you can hear the thud, but we'll see how we go with it and see what you pick up from it. Again, the microphones are muted, so if you've got any questions about what I'm showing, please type them out. Hannah will pick them up, and at the end, when I've stopped talking about the products itself, we'll start answering the questions for you. All right, give me 1 second. Okay, has that stopped sharing? If someone can just give a thumbs up.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to stand over here for a second. You'll notice the two toilets in the room. One on this side, this is to my left, is a smaller 23-inch seat width bench. And the one on the right is a 34-inch seat width bench. So if you can't gauge the length of it, I'm sat on one side and there's room for someone else to sit on the other side. Both these benches, 3 years ago, my colleague Richard Wheeler, who's part of the team covers the Southwest, his background in designing and manufacturing products, brilliant. So 3-4 years back, we approached Osprey Healthcare and said we want a bench that was perfectly designed for our toilet, that matched the seat types that we could. So one of the things that I hope you can see from there is how close these benches actually sit to the toilet. What we tried to achieve was, in one family environment, this bench may be left over the toilet and never taken away. To others, it may be taken away because the rest of the family don't want to sit on it. So we came up with a couple of seat height options on the benches that would allow us to adjust our toilet to the height we want. And obviously, because our toilet comes with no lid as standard, if you actually look from where the seat edge ends to where the cistern is, it's about 7 inches, 8 inches gap. So when people talk about shelves on the toilet and being pushed forward, which makes them urinate on the floor, we don't have that problem because people can get themselves back to the position they need to be. And then because our wash arm on our toilet is adjustable, once they're sat where they feel they need to be sat, using the remote control, they can adjust the wash arm so it falls in the right place to clean the bottom properly. Hopefully you can see on the camera this aperture. It's no different than an aperture you would get in a normal shower chair, whether it's Osprey Healthcare, whether it's Freeway T40 Auto, whether it's a Chiltern Inverdex. Although they do have seat sizes, very often we find most people go for the standard medium-sized aperture. And that relates back to what I was saying earlier on about the size of the bottom. The bigger the hole, the more it'll fall and ripple into the hole. On a shower toilet, you want the buttocks parted, what we call the channel, and that allows the water to move along the channel to clean the buttocks thoroughly. So if we put a big aperture on here and just let the bottom fall through, the cheeks will be squoze together, the water will come up and hit it and just spray off, like if you've put a spoon upside down under your kitchen tap and turned the water on. So it's a normal aperture, but this one's 22-inch width. It's removable, and there's nothing you need to do, okay? It can be removed. You can have commode with it, so you can put it at the side of a bed at night if that's what you needed. You can remove it out of the way so the rest of the family can still use the toilet. You know our toilet now with the remote control and the adjustability on it, so that allows it to adjust to the power and speed needed for the bigger bottoms, and then right down for the power and speed needed for the little kiddies' bottoms. This side I set the toilet up so you could see it with the seat on. So we're fortunate with our toilet that we actually can adjust the power of the dryer as well as the power of the wash. So if we leave a toilet seat on and put the chair over, it means you're a little bit higher up than what we would really like, but it means the seat can stay on so the rest of the family can use the toilet as well. You just take the bench away, bring it back as and when needed. By keeping the seat on and raising you up a bit, in some instances you could say that you don't get quite the same wash and dry performance, but that's where we win, because as I said a minute ago, with a remote control we can adjust the power of the water so it can go higher up, and we can now, as of September when we launch the update to the dryer, you can increase the power of the dryer, because typically what happens on a dryer and on a shower chair, because you've got the thickness of a steel frame and then you've got the padded seat, you're usually about 3 to 4 inches higher up than you would be if you were sat on it. So a lot of heat and the performance of a dryer is lost when using shower chairs. So we brought out the update to the dryer, which means you can increase it, so you can have a stronger dry performance, which means it can get up higher and retain the heat. Because obviously the higher it goes, the cooler it gets by the time it gets to the skin. So we got around that by introducing the dry mode. I'm just going to put this one back over. Oh, by the way, just so you can see, it has a skirt on it, so it catches all the water. So even it's a little bit higher, it's still very close to the seat, not the ceramic, the seat. But it does mean it can be moved in and out the way so the rest of the family can use it as and when. On this side, this is a large one. This is a 34-inch seat width. This one on the left has got horseshoe seat. The one on the right has got a full aperture seat. Everyone's different. Some blokes tend to like a full aperture seat because they struggle to point themselves down. They can't find themselves to point down to urinate. So by having a horseshoe seat, it can pop through the front and out. Whereas with a full aperture seat, because the skirt goes all the way around, even if they're not pointing fully down to urinate, it'll point forward and catch the skirt and then drop into the pan. It's really down to personal choice. Listening to them discussing the issues they have on the toilet can help you decide whether you go for a horseshoe or whether you go for a full aperture. But on this one on the side, when I move it away, you'll notice I've taken the seat off, because what I tend to find is, especially for the larger of you often, and sadly at times, is that they actually live on their own. So there is no other family in the house, no one else using the toilet. It really is just for them. So then you can get to a point, so well, what's the point of taking the frame over the top and having the seat on? So on our toilet, we can take the seat off. It still works as an activation for the bench, but we can now get the seat really close to the ceramic. So in fact, you don't lose any performance whatsoever. So if it's a person living on their own and we take the seat off, we put the bench over, raise the toilet so it literally skims it, and we lose absolutely nothing. No wash performance, no dry performance, no positioning performance. It works a real treat. So I'll just take this one away. It's a little bit bigger and a bit heavier, so bear with me. But it's the same one. It's got an 85 stone weight limit. And as you can see, hopefully you can see from there, if this isn't in the way, because we've got the burst ceramic with no seat on, that gets really close and there's just no gap to it whatsoever. And I did want to show you this little frame. Some people look at it and think, why would you use that? But like I say, we had one instance where, I'll just move this, where it was a prefabricated metal shed, and this little seat saved us, because it wasn't so much that the client was that heavy. They were pushing about 25 stone, mostly on the belly, not sideways, so these arms weren't really an issue. But we were just struggling sitting down gently and standing up. And at 25 stone, you know, you're now pushing a dynamic impact weight of, if we were dropping heavy, of about 45, 50 stone. So it was just nice to put this over. They've got the armrests that they can hold on to and then just lower themselves down. And this actually came out the equipment lawn store, because it's just a frame by Gordon Ellis, Langham's. And like I said, I think it's less than about £150. It saved the day. If anyone was, pushing the 30 stone weight limit, which this has, then probably wouldn't recommend it. But in that instance, it did work. In some instances, you might just find something like that in the equipment lawn store can get you by until you've actually got the bench ordered and delivered and put over the toilet. It is height adjustable, so it can match the height of the toilet. These frames, and you won't be able to see it from the video, when you first ever see them, you look at it and think, how can that have an 85 stone weight limit? Because it's got Eclipse on. If any of you know anything about Eclipse that raise the height of perching stools and commode chairs, usually they're rated to about 21 stone, 25 stone if you're lucky. These Eclipse do nothing but hold in a solid stainless steel lug of metal. So the feet are not height adjustable by stems, it's height adjustable by ordering the different heights of feet. We don't want height adjustment, you'd never be able to achieve 85 stone. So the different seat height settings are determined by the different feet that we order at a time. But yeah, so this is a Java bench, or Java plinth as Closmat call it, as Osprey call it, I call it the Java bench. We do have freeway. I've not got one available and I couldn't find a picture of it over our toilets while we weren't showing it. But if any of you have ever used the Monk's bench from Freeway, this is kind of where our inspiration came from. We wanted something very specific for the toilet. 2 seat widths, 23 inch, 34 inch, 2 seat heights, 19 inch and 21 inch, but they can do a special if you really requested one. But we've purposely kept it at a normal-ish seat height for the reasons I mentioned before about the thicker the calves are, the shorter the actual floor to back and knee is. Okay, let me just put this one back and then it's ready. And I'm going to attempt to move the camera just so you can see the position. That'll do. So a lot of people, when they see the benches over it, they're like, will the wash arm still get in the same place? So Hannah's going to kill me for this, but I am going to show you just quickly. If you actually look down, hopefully you can see the wash arm sticking out. So here's the edge of a seat, and behind there is the wash arm sticking out, and the water's roughly pointing to that position. So if you think of the bottom and how much you need to move back, the wash arm is here, but we can adjust this wash arm anywhere in this range. So we'll always get a good position with a wash arm, so it's in the right place. Am I back to normal? Yes, I am. So yeah, so even when you're putting the wash arm of a bench over it and you think, oh, I'm worried, will it still wash the bottom? It adjusts to the bottom. What we don't have to do is make someone sit in a very specific position to get the bottom washed. Okay, so how are we doing for time, Hannah?
I reckon we've probably got another 15, 20 minutes left.
Good. Well, I cut out some of the little stories because we were running a bit late, just to try and save you all time so you could stay in. Have we had any questions out there about the benches or frames or equipment?
Yep, do you want me to go through some of those now?
You can do if you want to.
Fabulous. Well, thank you for your questions, everyone. Keep them coming in the chat and we'll get through a few now. And if we don't cover any in this session, we'll get them to you afterwards, or you've got Simon's contact details and you can always just get in touch with him directly if you've got any particular cases you want answered. So Simon, the first one then, which is, are there any manufacturers which produce a toilet greater than the recommended static load?
I've never seen anyone who does one on dynamic, because that's the main thing. Even if you found someone who went past the British standards or the European standards, this 71 stone, I've never seen someone who does it for dynamics. I could probably find out a bit more from our Twyford side, from a business and on that, but the British and the European standards are pretty much that, I forgot the kilograms now, 453 kilograms. Yeah, I think in America, someone will have to do the conversion for me. In America, I've seen some that are like 1,000 pounds, whatever that works out to. But it's probably about the same. They're all typically around 70, 71 stone. I think if you look at some manufacturers for the wall hung, their static weight load limits are a little bit lower because it's wall hung. But I think at Gebrick, we pretty much test them all to the same standard. But yeah, maybe have a look in America. I've seen comments about 1,000 pound weight limits, but I'm not quite sure what that converts to in stones and kilograms.
Okay, perfect. Right, the next one then was, normally we work with a 500mm mid-cistern to wall. What distance is required to accommodate the large WC bench? Have you used any of the benches? Oh, sorry, yeah, that's one. So about the distance required to accommodate the large WC bench.
Cool. So the 23-inch width one, the one I'm sat on, isn't actually that much wider than a typical normal shower chair. So on the 23-inch wide one, I still go with that rule of 450 mil from the wall at the side to the center of the toilet is minimum. The 500 mil that we all try to work to is the ideal. On the larger one, it's quite a bit larger. So I've got my tape measure because I was hoping someone would pick up on that and ask. But roughly, from the edge of the wall to the toilet, from the wall to the center of the toilet, you can still get away with 500 millimeters. The picture that I showed you in the bathroom where the bench was over the toilet and there was another one at the side, you notice that bench was touching the wall. Now in that instance, it was fine because the spread was literally all on the buttocks. The legs weren't too bad. So it wasn't that the legs were being forced against the wall. It could sit like that, but the spread went out like that. I think we call it a pear shape. So it wasn't an issue if it was that close to the wall, but yeah, you could aim to increase it by another 10 centimeters. So instead of 500 mil from the center of the toilet to the wall, take it out to 600 mil, and then you'll get the bench over the wall and you'll still have enough room for anything falling down the side or hands or resting.
Okay, perfect. The next one is, have you ever used these benches with wheelchair users?
For side transferring? Yes. So can you see? Forgive me. This may just answer your question. Normally, the feet are ferrules, but we actually do one, and if I go closer, we call them like rose-mounted feet, the ones that you can actually screw to the floor. So if you've got someone who's side transferring, rather than leaving it loose, bolt it to the floor. And that's where the beauty of the feet with the ferrules come in, with a little Eclipse, because all the Eclipse do is hold the feet in place to set the height, but not weight bearing in any way. So if we ever need to go out to do any maintenance works or cleaning, or carers just want to give the bathroom a going over, pull the Eclipse, lift the whole bench up, which will leave the feet screwed to the floor, and you can take it out the way while you do maintenance, put it back on. But then at least by screwing it to the floor, if someone is going to side transfer in any way, or even just get hold of it to pull themselves up, at least it's solid and it's fixed to the floor and it's not going to ping up and hit them. So I've personally not seen someone do it, but we've had conversations about it in the past before. And they just found it better in the end, hold the grab rail, pull themselves up, twist and drop.
We did actually just have a question about whether or not you can bolt it to the floor, so I think we've answered that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I don't sell the Osprey stuff. We just work closely with all these shower chair manufacturers and promote their products working well with ours because they do. But you can buy it with either or feet, floor-mounted feet or ferrule feet. I don't think there's a difference. You just specify it.
Okay, that's perfect. While we're still on the benches, someone's asked if you could kind of go over the Eclipse leg description again to make it nice and clear.
Of course I can. Cool. I'm just going to take this away. Now, you can tell me if you can see this on camera or not. So this is a leg and the Eclipse. The Eclipse doing nothing other, if I ping it out, hopefully, take the Eclipse out. It's a solid leg. So typically you're all used to working with perching stools and commode chairs, and the Eclipse you'll pull out and move it through the tube with the different heights of leg settings on it. This leg is solid. So it's cut to a certain length to give a certain height. This is a couple of kilograms of weight on its own, 2 or 3 kilograms. So that's cut to length here to give the overall seat height. So all the Eclipse doing is keeping it in place so it don't fall out when you pick it up and it doesn't drop on your toe. Non-weight bearing whatsoever, just holding in place. This, as you can see with the diameter, hopefully slides inside, and then the Eclipse just puts it in place and locks it. And that's why you would never, ever try and say you've got 85 stone weight limit and then show someone an Eclipse, because we just don't take it whatsoever. Any more?
Perfect. And I think in relation to this, somebody has just asked if the benches are height adjustable and what kind of range they tend to go in. Do you know?
The thing like the Langhams is height adjustable, but it's only got a 30 stone weight limit simply because of Eclipse. Take the Eclipse out of the equation, then you can get 85 stone weight limit. If you wanted a very specific height, so let's say you did have someone who was 6'6" and he's a big old Welsh rugby player, Sally, But he's, he's 30, 35 stone, but he's really tall. And typically with that sort of gentleman, you find it's more overall mass rather than it just in a specific place. So it might mean that his floor to knee height is still quite tall because he's tall. So you can buy these legs made longer, and then you slide them in and you've raised the seat height. The beauty of that is you can also then raise the toilet to literally skim it again. So whether it was a change or something at the time of install, it can be covered off, but it's not an E-clip where you pull it out, lower it down, put it back in. You take it out completely and put a different height in.
Okay, perfect. I'm not sure if you know the answer to this one off the top of your head. Someone here has asked, which manufacturer produces a bench with the highest SLW?
As far as I know this one, as far as I know, I think Chiltern Inverdex and the Freeway one, I think, push out at 55 stone weight limit. Chiltern Inverdex was the grey and white one with the arms on it that you saw in one of my photographs. The toilet was head on and then there was one at the side. So that's got a 55 stone weight limit. I think the Osprey ones peak out at the 85 stone weight limit.
Okay, perfect. Somebody else has just popped up saying, what's the weight of the actual bench? I mean, we can see you moving them around, but roughly are they?
That's a good question. Let's see if I've got a brochure and I can ask. What's the actual weight of it? 20? 25 kilograms maybe? I'm curious now. I'd go with about 20 kilograms, thereabouts, if that. So,
okay, perfect. We'll find that out and we'll pop that
yes, put it in a question.
In the answer then. I'm just testing you now, Simon.
Why not?
Perfect. The next one we've had through is, again, about the benches and how easy it is to clean the skirts.
It's exactly the same setup as a shower chair. So whether it's a T40, T70, a tilting space, the skirts are all the same. They're made from the same vinyl as what the seats are. So whether it's someone taking it and putting it in the shower area and blasting it with a shower head or just squirting it with antibacterial spray, it's made from the same, I'm going to move it again and you're going to tell me off. It's made from the same material, you can see that. So that vinyl covering that we put on all the seats, it's just made from the same. So yeah, give it a good squirt, give it a good wipe, give it a blast with a shower head if you want to. I think the only thing I say, again, everyone tells me off of this in the industry, bleach. Don't use bleach. Why would you want to put bleach somewhere near where you're going to put a bottom? So just antibacterial spray and you'll be perfectly fine. And you can even get a Brilla pad and give it a good scrub if you want, because it's quite thick vinyl.
Okay, perfect. The next one is, are they easy to dismantle and get into the property? So we're on the benches again.
Yeah, because we're not too wide. Although we've got the two different lengths, the seat depth is standard at 40 centimeters, so just on 16 inch. So yeah, you can, when I was carrying them, these were both in the back of my car, along with the extra bit. They're only 18, 19 inch high or 21 inch high, so they're not a massive bulk. They're just long, so you just hold it like that and just walk in the room. Not too bad at all.
Okay, perfect. We've probably still got a few minutes for a couple more, so we'll go for this one. Do you think we should be advising seats independent of the WC as a matter of course? We have noticed that people do not rise and sit in a vertical manner, they twist, which can create an uneven load on the WC.
Ooh. So we're talking about sitting on a normal WC?
I think if you wanted to apply it to the mirror, that would be great.
Yes. So in terms of sitting on the frame, I say underneath this is like Iron Man's leg, but the cistern itself is this steel frame. Granted, it's height adjustable. But we've got two fixing in the floor, we've got two fixing midway up the cistern, and then two more at the top of the wall. So when I'm ever doing assessments, and whether it is someone of weight or not, if I see that the transfers are very hard, I always insist on the toilet being bolted in all three places to fix it down. And then that covers a couple of things off. Yes, we're not just talking about the dynamic impact weight, but we're talking about people when they fall, they may fall on an angle. I've seen some people who fall, lean on the toilet to stop them falling and then bring themselves back in line. So you're right, that's an impact going on an angle rather than it going straight down. It's another reason why we don't put a lid on our toilet seat. Get rid of the lid. It's something that they can't fall on and hurt themselves with. But also get rid of the lid, it means you've got bigger hinges on the seat. So when people do sit or fall and twist and turn, the lid doesn't move out the way. So I'll show you what I mean, because we do have a 30 stone weight limit on the toilet. So we do get 30 stone people sitting on it. But by getting rid of the lid, and putting 4 teeth, as I call them. Can you see them from there, hopefully, Hannah?
Yeah.
4 teeth that bite the toilet, so when it's down in the ceramic, they grip the ceramic and they stop it shuffling sideways. But also because we've no lid, we've got, you know, either side, we've got like a 2-inch, 3-inch hinge. So bear in mind, this isn't bolted to the floor. The seat can't move anywhere when you're pulling on it. So if we do have someone giving an unorthodox transfer, dropping on it and shifting one way, it is quite solid with it. Again, going back to the bungalow, it was a suspended floor bungalow. So as you were walking through the bungalow, you felt the floor bouncing underneath you. And on that recommendation, they weren't going for a bench, it was on this one, recommended that before we took the toilet in, take up the floor, put some extra joists underneath, strengthen the floor to put the toilet in, because that was actually a bad transfer across. So a normal toilet, it's got 2 little tiny screws into your bathroom floor. You'll check it later when you get home. Very often we just use shed screws, and there's 2 in the cistern if you take the top off to look at the valve, that are just screwed into the wall. There's no support on a normal toilet whatsoever. And that's often why you see toilets twisting, turning and pulling away, and rotten floorboards.
Okay, perfect. The next question was from Sophie, who I think has also put an example in the chat slightly earlier on, but what we'll do is we'll just answer your question now, Sophie, and then with the with your example, if you wanted to get in touch with Simon later, he'll be able to give you more of a specific answer to kind of that situation. But now she has asked if there are any deeper seats available, as she thinks her client would need a deeper seat.
Deeper at the back? A standard, no. I think you speak to any of the manufacturers, you know, even Chiltern Index will do a special one if you speak to them. If you actually had a certain seat depth you wanted, you probably find they will be able to make it to that depth. Like I said, these standards are about 16.5 inches. If you said you needed one 18 to 20, then yes, you could do it. The only thing I'm ever aware of is obviously manufacturers, when they're making your specials, they're not being made in the jigs, which are quick and easy and set to precise. It's all done by hand. And that's why they charge you a bit more for it. So yeah, you could definitely get one made bigger. You could take one of the reps out on the assessments and tell them how big you wanted it and get it done. We are, tell me off again, just to show you what I mean, I'll just put this back quickly. When the toilet's over, because we've got no lid, we've got all of this room. So you're right, I get what you're saying. You'd like a bit more room here. So it'd take it even further back. And some people may like that. Most tend to be just happy where they sit, because mostly it's this way and coming back across. It's not that it drops down, it's just coming at the back. So we have this lovely gap. So we don't struggle, where a lot of toilets do, excuse me. We don't struggle getting people's bottoms back, but I get what you mean about having more surface area. So yeah, you just speak to the manufacturers and they do you a special.
Perfect. We just had one final question in the comment then that says, what's the measurement without the lid? And I assume that's possibly from the front to the back of the cistern. Know that off the top of your head? From the back of a cistern? He hasn't specified. So if you just, there you go, the depth between the back of the cistern and the front and the end of the seat, I think. Okay, about 60 centimetres, oh, sorry, 60 inches. Sorry, 60 centimetres, 24 inches, 2 foot. So quite a lot compared to most. A lot of shower toilets you find, a lot of toilets you'll find the seats here, so you can't go back. So we've got that good 8 inches more room than most. But yeah, just on 2 foot from a cistern. And I don't know if I can, I'm trying to put my arm to the back. If you can see that, if I sit here on the edge, there's a good 8 inches, maybe more, backwards. Okay, perfect. What I think we'll do then is we'll wrap up the session today, but if anybody does have any specific cases they'd like to talk to Simon about, his contact details are on the presentation that we'll send out tomorrow, and I'll pop them in the chat now. So if you're anything kind of specific situations you want to chat about, I'm sure Simon will be more than happy to touch and help you out with those. Superb, lovely, thank you. Thanks for taking them down, Hannah. Very welcome. I hope everyone's found the session informative and useful. As I say, we've got Simon's details, and I think we've got another webinar next week, which is a general shower toilet surgery. If anyone would like to join us with any extra questions, then that would be great. Brilliant, lovely. Thank you everyone for joining in, really appreciate it. Take care.